The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get.
He missed the complete. That is crazy stuff.
Side Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
Welcome to Laguna Seca, home of Round 4 in the EnduroPro series, and we're bringing it to you live on the Global Sim Racing channel. I'm Joe Peak. With me in the booth today are Kevin Brown, Brian Corwin, Dusty Peterson, and Daniel Benefield. And as always, behind the scenes is our director, Giancarlo Lenzi. Kevin, looks like C1 class is going to have their hands full today.
Not many C1 cars, but a lot of C2 and C3 means they will definitely have their hands full today, Joe.
Brian, always a pleasure to have you call in C2.
Yeah, thanks for having me down here, Joe. I'm just looking at some of these qualifying times, which we'll get to later, but it looks like the two GT classes are pretty closely mingled. It's going to be a good race today.
Dusty, are you ready to cover C3 class today?
Ready, willing, and eager. This is going to be an interesting one. The C3 class numbers about half the field here, and considering how tight like Kevin said, how tight things are between, or Brian said, between C2 and C3, it's going to be really tricky.
And Daniel, welcome to the team. Hope pit reporting is not too crazy for you today.
Hopefully it's not, Joe, but thank you for having me, and thank you for GSRC for giving me this opportunity today.
Absolutely. Well, Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, or just Laguna Seca to most, has a tremendous amount of history when it comes to sports car racing. To tell us a little bit more about the track, let's go to Brian Corwin.
Yeah, certainly, Joe. The track info goes as follows. The track is 2.238 miles long, or 3.602 kilometers. It has 11 corners featuring the historic Andretti hairpins, the Ray Hall Straight, and the corkscrew, which has a huge elevation change. Everyone is probably familiar with these areas of the track. But overall, it's a technical track. It got a good mix between camber, uphill, downhill sections, and it's a great multi-class environment for racing.
And also, we can't forget the championship that's going on in the EnduroPro series, and that is brought to you by Sim Seats up in C1. It's been an interesting one so far, Kevin.
It has been an interesting one, and the battle that we're expecting is a little delayed because of Troy Schultz missing around. But our overall leader in C1 is Joao Vaz. He's sitting on 75 points. Second is Iker Estefania, who has 60 points. He's 15 behind. Third is Mark Mucky with 58. That's 17 behind. Fourth is Anton Volodin, who is on 49 points. That's 26 behind. And fifth is Anthony Kopen, who's on 41. That's 34 points behind, Joe.
Meanwhile, in C2 class, things have been mixed up just a little bit, it looks like, Brian.
Yeah, especially after last week at VIR, there's a lot of drama in the Corvette field, so that kind of shook up the points a little bit. Manuel Sanchez is leading the pack at 71 points, followed by Andre Martins, who is trailing by 13 points. He has 58 points and is sitting in second. Stefan Overgaard, a GSR friend of ours, our RC friend of ours, has 48 points. He's behind 23 points. João Oliveira has 48 points. He trails by 23. And Fruit Manzar, the newcomer that just ran away with the race last week at VIR, he has 30 points and he's down 41 points. But obviously, being a rookie, he hasn't had time to accumulate points, Joe.
Meanwhile, in C3, it's been the same story that we've had since day one, it looks like, Dusty.
Yeah, absolutely. Joao Cardozo has been absolutely nailing it so far. With his ability to maintain pace and navigate traffic, he has maintained 3 wins so far, so he's leading with 90 points. However, Patrick Pitchler isn't too far behind with 71, only 19 back. So, if he can keep things up, and maybe we'll see Cardozo have a couple misses here, can knock him off that. Behind that, we got Tom Valentini at 46 points, Paulo Martins at 41 points. They've got a pretty tight battle for third, and Andreas Alemansberger in fifth at 36 points, or 64 points back.
And of course, there is also the Gentleman's Championship. Excuse me. And for those not familiar, iRacing offers out incident points, basically, for any time that you have a mistake, such as an off track, your car spins, you make contact with the wall or another car. And so the cleaner you race, the fewer incident points you have. And basically, drivers start with 20 points every race, and for each incident points, a point is taken off of those 20. So the more points you have at the end, the more points that goes towards your championship. Patrick Pitchler is leading that with 54 points right now. João Cardozo is at 48.6 points back, so it's pretty close. And obviously, João is both clean and fast. Same thing with João Vaz, who has 47 points, only 7 points back. Then one more point behind, it's Manuel Sanchez at 46 points. And finally, Derek Waller at 42 points with 12 points behind the leader, Patrick Pitchler. So it's very close in the Gentleman's Championship. But we do have a lap guide. Obviously, you don't see any cars on track right now. That's because they're in a driver's meeting. But we're going to take you on a lap around here with Stefan Overgaard. Alrighty, Stefan Overgaard's behind the wheel of the GSRC Corvette, and it's time for a lap around Laguna Seca. Down to the start-finish line, turn 1 happens right away as we come over this blind crest, but immediately you want to get the car straightened to brake for 2, the Andretti hairpin. Double apex this bad boy, which is frankly your best chance on the whole circuit to attempt a pass. Turn 3 is up next, but you're going to fight some understeer here. Just be careful not to cut too far in and hit that big red curb. Stay to the left, and same deal with 4. Don't play chicken with that big red curb. Those things are everywhere around here, and they will bite you in a bad way. Heavy braking for 5, but keep your speed up. It's a long ways uphill, and losing your momentum will leave you vulnerable. Then it's the fearsome turn 6. Apex too early, and your car will get pitched off the circuit. Apex too late, and you're going to drift wide into the sand. Either way, it's another momentum turn where carrying speed counts. Now the infamous corkscrew. The track crests and curves under braking. The next thing you know, you're dropping multiple stories and dealing with a chicane. Diabolical stuff. Plunging down through rainy curve now. Late apex, and be careful not to drift too wide. Turn 10 has lots of banking, so you really got to chuck the car in. Then, if you're sneaky, 11 offers a chance to pass, but it's touch and go. This is the slowest corner on the circuit, so the vet will struggle putting the power down. From there, you accelerate away, and that's a lap around Laguna Seca. So it's a relatively short lap around here. As you can see, a lot of guys are going to be really close together, especially with the number of cars we have. Quick mention, don't forget that we are on social media at GSR Channel. If you want to get a hold of us during the race, we'll try and answer your questions. Also, you can get a hold of the EnduroPro Series at EnduroPro Series. Same thing on Facebook /EnduroPro Series. If you want to try and ask some questions or just follow the series in general. We've got a lot of stories to talk about, guys. Obviously, all the classes are going to have their hands full, Kevin, with even though it's not as many cars as we've seen in the past. I mean, like I said, with it being a short track, it's just going to be a bit of constant chaos.
Right, short track and lots of corners and short straights means drivers are going to be very, very, very busy today. HPDs are going to have a difficult time just trying to make sure they get through traffic without causing any wrecks. We see that there are McLarens and Corvettes that are running similar paces, so the GT cars are going to have their own little battles going on. But yeah, the story of the race is make sure you keep your head on a swivel, watch your mirrors and out the windshield, and don't ruin anybody else's race.
Yeah, and the thing that really we need to watch out for, Dusty, is these huge curbs on the inside. They've become a bit infamous here at Laguna Seca. Those big red sausages that they've got.
Yeah. I mean, Laguna is you take the good with the bad. Laguna is a very smooth track. There's some bumpy tracks that throw you around. Most of the curbs here are actually very short. And then they just throw these big red bricks just on the insides. It's like, you can run on the blue stuff, but don't hit that red thing. I've gone airborne on more occasions than I'd be willing to admit. On, I believe, is it... I can remember my term numbers. Just before the Ray Hall Straight.
Turn 6?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a tricky track. It's very technical. It has a lot of camber changes. It's going to be really interesting. It's narrow. We got a lot of change in pace. It's going to be a lot of fun today.
Very much so. Now, we see, looking at some of the qualifying, I see that David DeRoche has done fairly well. And we saw a really good race from him last time. I'm sorry, Brian.
Yeah, actually, it's not just David DeRoche that had a good race last week. A lot of people had early mistakes in the race, and it was more about just capitalizing on other people's mistakes, distancing yourself from the pack, and then trying to get a break in traffic. David DeRoche particularly did very well in that and was able to come out with a good finish. David is one of those drivers that typically you see him up in the top half of the field, but he doesn't really quite got the speed to do be a consistent winner like a Farouk Manzar like we saw last week or some of the other drivers. But his consistency and his knowledge of the prototype GT style racing really has paid off for him this season, and I'm looking for him to have a good finish today, Joe.
Definitely, and it's good to see some of those guys that maybe have been hanging around the mid-pack start to really come to the fore as they get used to the series and the other drivers around them. But a lot of stuff to watch out for today. We are going to actually go to qualifying since they're doing the drivers' meeting. And we've got João Vaz on the pole by a significant margin, Kevin.
Yep, he ran a nice 111.501. Second place on the outside row is Troy Schultz with a 112.116. Third is Lars Conrad. Fourth, Iker Estefania. Fifth, Anton Volodin. And sixth will be Lenoir Philippe, a light HPD grid, but they should get it done today.
Meanwhile, Sven Kremer, a name that we're not used to, a 900 driver, is up top in C2, Brian.
Yeah, this is becoming kind of a trend here in the Corvette class. We have had quite a few 900 drivers come in and make a mark on the series. Sven Kremer is the latest brand to hit the field, and he has a 120.8, which is a very good time here at Laguna Seca, especially in this style of racing. Followed by him is Stefan Overgaard, Braden Eves. He's another 900 driver. He's in third place. David DeRoche is in fourth, followed by Francisco Esteve Albert and Manuel Sanchez, who Manuel's a little ways back, but he's such a good driver. I don't think he's going to be back there for long. Next is Tim Abbott. Kevin O'Keefe had kind of a dog qualifying today, but he's had some experience in this style of racing, so I see him having a good finish today. And then Yuri Mojax all the way in the back.
And then, as usual, João Cardojo leading the way in C3. Dusty?
Absolutely. He doesn't have quite as big of a lead on the qualifying as on some of the other classes. He's running a 122.039, and just behind him is the second place in points, Patrick Pitchler, running a 122.165. Coming back from there, Andreas Alemansberger in third, then Tom Valentini in fourth, Tiago Albuquerque in fifth, then Riley Wyans, Paulo Martins, Omar Zanchi, Derek Waller, Simon Carr, Cedric Finzak, Jarrett Lawson, Mark Hewitt, and Mike Sargent rounding it up in the back. So we got a pretty big field with the MP4 today.
Yeah, like you said, about half the field it looks like. We've only got 31 cars on the track, and it looks like they have about 13 or 14 of them are MP4s, those McLarens in the C3 class. Going to be fairly interesting as it continues to be very competitive out there. But we have cars that are lining up on the grid. We are getting ready to take 90 minutes around here, and they are going to do their pace lap and then take off, which it's going to be, we expect just a lot of chaos. I know we keep saying that, but if you've never watched a multi-class race, let alone a three-class race around Laguna Seca, you have seen nothing yet. Let's go through our picks real quick. Kevin, who are you eyeing for the win today?
I don't know, Joe, to be honest. Joao and Troy, we know, both are fast. I think the story for them, the winner's going to be whoever's able to get through traffic better today.
Brian, who you've got your eye on?
Well, not to be cliche, but because of the circumstances with the traffic and the way it is, I'm going to go with Kevin on this one. It's going to be the guy who stays out of trouble and manages traffic. I'm going to go with Stefan Overgaard, though. I think he's shown a lot of good finishes and just had some bad luck this season. I think today's going to be his day.
Dusty, what about you?
Well, I mean, Joao Cardozo has run it for 3 races so far, and he's shown that he's really good in traffic. The story might be a little different here at Laguna Seca, though, so I'm kind of eager. I don't necessarily just want to put all the weight on his shoulders. I'm kind of hoping today Pitchler will shine and really show us what he can do.
Yeah, we need just a little bit more variety in that class. Daniel, you know, one of the things, since we haven't talked to you a lot yet, is the pit entry and exit in this place. It seems like we've seen cars have a bit of trouble with that before.
Yes, this Laguna Seca is probably one of the most complicated pit entries and pit exits, definitely in North America. The pit entry, you veer off after, I'm not quite sure what turn number it is. It's the second last turn though. Veer left, and then there's a right, followed by a very sharp left. Normally you have the limiter on before the left, or else you end up speeding in pit lane. Pit exit, again, very tricky. One of the longest pit exits before you actually rejoin the track. You would have seen on the inside, just as the drivers were pulling away, the pit exit, and there's markers that separate them. That you don't actually rejoin the track from pit exit until after the Andretti hairpin. Again, very tight on the inside there, and one mistake and you can not only ruin your own race but others.
Yeah, so guys really have to be heads up around there. I imagine the Corvettes, especially with all that power underneath them coming out of that pit exit. And speaking of, you know, the Corvettes and the pits, Stefan Overgaard was mentioned earlier. I know we've seen him in the past in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series actually bin it into the pit entry. So as Daniel mentioned, drivers have really got to watch out and not get too greedy into there. Currently, the HPDs are coming up to the corkscrew, another very difficult part of this track. You'll see from the cameras, they really don't give a sense of how steep a drop this is on this part of the course as they wheel through there. Even going too wide at pace speed is incredibly difficult. But they are getting ready to take the green flag here. They've only got 2 more corners to go as they come out of the Rainy curve. Got to watch out for that exit there. There's a drain on the outside of Rainy that has bit a number of drivers that can really absolutely destroy the suspension if you come up upon that. Pace car is coming to the final corner. Joao Vaz is going to lead them away with Troy Schultz next to him. It's round 3 for these guys, but round 4 overall. These two have been going at it so far. Joao Vaz has more wins, but the pace car is off and away. Green flag is off. They have to wait till they get to the line, and then they are going to be able to accelerate as Joao Vaz leads them. Now he takes off and away. He gets a very good jump as Troy Schultz is left in the dust. In fact, he's well clear of the rest of the pack as these 6 HPDs come up to the Andretti hairpin. What's C2 looking like, Brian?
Yeah, it looked like Sven Kresmer either didn't jump on the gas right away, or maybe he was unfamiliar with the procedures for the start. Like you said, each class has to wait before they get to the line before they can take off, and there was a little bit of a delay. Needless to say, coming down into the turns 1 and 2, he did get a very good jump, and he has taken off. Stefan Overgaard was overtaken by Brandon East, but he's remaining in third. Otherwise, the rest of the pack is pretty much as filed in qualifying and running very clean, Joe.
Meanwhile, it looks like C3 has already taken off, Dusty.
Yeah, definitely. And right off the bat, Joao Cardozo is starting to pull away from the sea of blue behind him. The three teammates, Patrick Pitchler, Andreas Allemensberger, and Tom Valentini, are all holding a tight pack as usual. Everybody's going through pretty okay. There was almost a little bit of contact going in the first corner, but looks like everybody's settling in for a good, long, clean race.
Yeah, thankfully this is a very clean start for what we've seen at Laguna Seca. Quick note, Diego Albuquerque in the number 19 car, that is not the correct number for him. He is going to get a black flag. He's a new driver, so tough start for him. Let's hop back up to the front, see what exactly is going on with this rather scant HPD field.
Well, the scant HPD field has started moving off. Joao Vaz is sitting on about a 1 second lead right now over Troy Schultz, and some pretty big gaps further behind Troy right now. But I think the story right now is these guys are just trying to get their tires warm, get into the rhythm, feel out the track, get used to it, and once again, wait until traffic shows up, and then that's when the action's going to get hot and heavy.
Absolutely. We'll come back to the HPDs a little bit later since the racing is starting to spread out there. Let's head back to C2 where we see Braden Eves currently holding down that second position, Brian. Now, Sven is a newcomer. This is the second race in a row we've seen a 900 driver start to come in and take over. But Braden Eves, also a 900 driver, this is not his first race, and we've seen him prove himself already.
Yeah, and prove himself he is going to do today, because Sven Krasmer had the fastest lap in qualifying, but if you go back and look at the times, they're all very close. So the fact that we got two 900 drivers that are maybe new to this series, but not the style of racing, they're really coming in and showing their colors. Both of those drivers took off. Stefan Overgaard's back there in third, almost 2 or 3 seconds back, and I think these two guys are going to be having quite the battle, like we saw last week with Farouk Manzar and I believe it was Manuel Sanchez, until Sanchez had his little accident. So, yeah, today we're looking at another good battle here developing already on lap 2.
And for those not familiar, we keep talking about these 900 drivers, these part-time drivers. Basically, drivers had to qualify to get into this series. They had a race at Suzuka, and if you ran that race, you are in full-time. You are competing for the championship. Drivers who have a 900 number did not race in that race, and they have to have 2 clean races before they are allowed into the series full-time. They are competing for the championship. So those drivers with the 900 need to be very wary of contact with other cars or any black flags. If they get one, chances are severely damaged that they will be allowed in by the stewards. So they've got to be walking a bit on eggshells, even though they're going to be pushing hard to get good results. Well, it looks like everyone is already starting to spread out a little bit, so obviously this track once again separates the men from the boys.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And like we were talking about earlier on, Joe, the track is very technical. You got Rainy Corner that has like a weird up and down dip. I believe the course through drops somewhere around like 2 or 3 stories worth of height. It's very crazy to try and pass or even go in there because it's kind of a blank corner. And then also turns 1 and 2 at the Andretti hairpin. If you don't get that entry right, you're going to be either over braking or under braking and losing a lot of time. So, yeah, this is a track that you obviously can't be lazy at, or you will get put out. As we're seeing in the Corvette race right now with Braden Eves taking off from Stefan Overgaard and trying to challenge on Sven Krasmer at the same time. It's a lot to think about when you're racing here. And once traffic catches up, I think that'll be the factor that keeps everybody in the top of the list here.
Well, for a little bit, we were watching Lenoir Philippe and Anton Volodin. Lenoir did not have a good race last time, and actually he's taken a look on, no, that was Volodin, actually, who took a look on Philippe and made the spot. So Volodin has moved himself up into 5th spot now. That was an excellent move up into turn 5 there.
And Joe, that was actually kind of reclaiming a spot. Anton had spun on lap 2 in turn 2 and was lapping quite a bit quicker than Lenoir was, so that was just kind of a due course, I think.
So hopefully Lenoir has a little bit of a cleaner race this time. As we mentioned, he ran into a bit of trouble. I think he was in the wrong number the previous race. He also had some connection issues. It seems like he's doing decently. I think I saw him blink maybe a time or two previously, but otherwise his car is on track. Now, we talk about blinking, though, Kevin. What exactly does that mean for those not familiar with sim racing?
Well, remember this is sim racing, so everything is done via the internet. And sometimes when a driver has a poor internet connection, or they're a long ways away, say from Australia perhaps, then sometimes that internet connection can get a little bad. And when that happens, the iRacing servers don't really know where that car is, and so they remove him from the world for a moment, and that's him blinking out of the screen. And it can be absolutely terrifying for the cars around him. But it's not, it's just one of those things. It's like a mistiming on your engine or something. It's just a problem. Sometimes you have to deal with it. Sometimes you have to work around it, and sometimes it's not an issue at all.
Joe,
Well,
if you don't mind me jumping in, I actually got a report here that Francisco Esteve Albert lost his connection due to the bad internet signal that he had. And so that's going to cost him a couple laps as he gets back in the server here. Like you said, it is a big factor in your day. I mean, it's kind of like having a mechanical failure or maybe your electronic systems failed, but it's just something you have to deal with in sim racing.
Well, Francisco is actually exiting right now, but yes, talk to us about C1, Kevin.
Yeah, well, Joao Vaz had a nice 2.5-second lead over Troy Schultz. Gone in an instant. C1 has caught in the back of the C3. Joao Vaz hung up badly in turn 2 by C3 traffic. Not their fault, and now this race is on.
Yeah, you can see them absolutely weaving through these MP4s in the C3 class, and Joao Vaz is doing an excellent job. In fact, he has come a long way since that first race we saw him in at Suzuka. He's acting more like a veteran in this mixed class racing than he is a newcomer.
Yeah, and actually, Joao has, he's gone out and gotten himself some other races in the prototypes and dealt with more mixed class traffic. And you said it, Joe. He has really come along. He looks like a veteran now. He's making smart moves, although that one was a little sketch. I think he caught that C3 in a spot he wasn't expecting to catch him to. But yeah, he is looking so much cleaner than he was at Suzuka in our first race.
And Troy's doing his best to keep in touch. He had a car between them in that last corner, but now he's coming on by. And now he's going to have yet another one. He just can't seem to make enough progress to get right up on the back of Joao Vaz. But we saw last race at VIR, there's going to be an ebb and flow. There's going to be opportunities come if he just waits for the right moment as the cars get caught out between each other.
Exactly, an ebb and flow, and there's another 83 minutes or so in this race, so there's lots of time for the tide to change. And, whoa, Troy kind of sticking in it a little late there into turn 5, but all's fair that ends well.
Yeah, they're starting to come across some of the higher-up MP4s here, so it's going to be a little bit harder going as they're fighting for position. In fact, those two that Joao Vaz are going by now, that is Pitchler and Valentini, are fighting for position right now, but they're able to get by before the corkscrew. Now Troy Schultz is trying to make his way by around Rainy Curve as it looks like Valentini lets him go. Woo! Very close quarters coming up to turn 10, but he still manages to squeak up by. These guys, I think because of just the nature of this track, they're having to make some of these more risky moves because there's a lot of lines where you're having to cross back over the track, and it's hard to tell if you're one of these MP4s, Dusty. Should you hold station or should you cross back over, or what do you do in that position?
Well, generally the idea is you want to drive like, as the slower car getting past, the responsibility to make a clean pass is always on the driver that is overtaking. Generally, as the slower car getting past, you want to be as predictable as possible. So for the most part, you just want to run your normal racing line, and the guy behind you has to pass you as if you were passing a competitor. That said, there are still some situations, if you can kind of see the body language of the car behind you in your mirrors and things like that, see where he's putting himself on track. And depending on where you are in the competition and stuff like that, it might be better you never want to cross the track to let somebody by, but there might be an instance where you say stay wide on a corner so that somebody can take the apex. But still, that would be a situation where you're not making any sudden moves. It's no real different than letting somebody who's faster behind you pass in normal racing.
And we're hearing word that someone had a big spin in Rainy. Let's see if we can send someone over to try and figure out what exactly happened there. But I want to talk about Cardozo and the way that he's dealing with traffic, because you noticed a few things at the last race at VIR, Dusty.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Cardozo, and it hasn't really played out yet this race, but I'm going to keep a really close eye on him, he's a very clean driver. He's a very fast driver, obviously. We don't really see him get into a lot of trouble because he usually breaks away from the pack pretty quick. But we talk about the traffic, and it all comes down to traffic, and he's shown that he's obviously very good at dealing with traffic because it doesn't seem to hold him up. I noticed in the last race a bit that you see him running by himself, and it's kind of hard to get a feel for how aggressive in a driver he is. But I definitely saw some situations where he made some definite gutsy moves, being a little defensive actually versus these faster classes coming up behind him in order to maintain his pace and his position on the track. So I kind of want to keep an eye on him because I have a feeling that where he's really winning it is by playing hardball in traffic.
So we'll have to watch out and see how he continues to deal with things. So far, it's been incredibly effective. Oh, and we got word that Troy Schultz is off.
Well, he had a 4 off on the exit of Rainey, gathered it back in, avoided the Corvette he was trying to lap, and back on. But we do have other action in the C1 field. Lenoir Philippe has been black flagged for avoidable contact. He'll have to serve and stop and go for touching just barely the rear end of Lenoir Philippe, of Jarrett Lawson, and caused Lawson to have kind of a half spin in turn 11. A little bit harsh if you ask me, but them's the rules. And Troy Schultz just goes 4 off again, this time on the exit of 4. Nearly loops it sideways. Troy is being very aggressive right now and having a little bit of difficulty trying to keep Joao Vaz in touch.
And I also saw Iker Estefania go off on turn 1. I'm not sure exactly what caused that. Also, Lenoir Philippe has exited out of the race. So I guess he's decided maybe he's had enough. And maybe this series is not for him. We'll see if he comes back another day. But meanwhile...
Joe, I got to jump in. Troy Schultz, our second place C1 car, has retired as well. We are down a third of the HPD field just like that.
That's interesting to note. I'm going back and seeing if I can figure out what exactly happened to Troy here, because it looks like he just kind of pulled over on the side of the track. Yeah, he just kind of pulls over and gives up the ghost.
Yeah, I think we can only speculate at this point, so it won't do us any good. But that's a shame. It was, I think, shaping up to be a good battle, but I guess Troy had something else going on.
Well, I know Troy mentioned that he is not very good at this track and that he was going to have to put in a lot of practice. So maybe he thought it was better to simply limit some of the damage that he might incur through black flags or other problems and call it a day. This is definitely going to hurt him in the points, though, because he's had 1 missed race and now he's going to have 2 DNFs. So his dropped races are pretty much depleted at this point.
Joe, I just want to jump in and ask you a question. Maybe you know the answer, maybe not. Does this count if he leaves the race today and does not come back? Does this count as a drop week, or does this count as one of his official starts and thus he gets a DNF in the points? Do you know the answer to that?
Well, the drop weeks are your worst finishes, so if you don't show up, that counts as one of your worst finishes. So I would assume it depends on how high up he finished at VIR on whether this one or VIR will count. So it's going to be it's either going to be this one or that one. Regardless, he's definitely going to be hurting in the points, and this is going to be a boon for Joao Vaz, who's really been the class of the field so far in terms of pace and in the last few races.
I actually have a question. Based on the small size of the HPD field, simply by turning 1 lap, does that automatically get him a 7th point finish?
I believe so. I believe Troy Schultz should still get the points, but it's still not going to be a good set of points for him. So,
I mean, it's certainly better than like a 14th place if it was a really populated race. He might have figured that, okay, he's just going to get in, turn a couple laps, get that 6th place, actually, get those points, and things could be a lot worse for him. He might ruin somebody's race and go down on, get penalties.
We had a big moment right there. Iker Estefania got taken to the wall by Manuel Sanchez on the run between turn 4 and 5. I'm not really sure what happened there. That was a little bit crazy to say.
Yeah, we're watching that replay right now. As you can see, they're coming up to turn 3 here, and then I believe it happens just after turn 4 as he comes up to the pink back end of that Corvette, and this is where it happens here. It was like I said, he just starts to cross across the track, and it was that miscommunication, but thankfully Iker kept it together, as you can see, and just continued on. but now he's going to have Volodin right behind him as he tries to gain, and now he's coming up and trying to make a pass coming into the corner.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
ahead,
I was on replay there, so Volodin has actually made the pass previously.
Yeah, I was a little confused there. Volodin is around Iker Estefania right now. They've been kind of going at it a little bit, but just a little bit of a half-second gap coming out of the tricky turn 2, and they're going to continue their season-long battle.
And this is for positions 3 and 4 in the C1 class as these guys duke it out. So there's a podium to be fought for as Anton actually goes a little bit off track but keeps it together. He lost his momentum as you see Iker start to close in up towards 5, but nothing doing there. He's not quite close enough, and I definitely wouldn't try something into 6.
Yeah, 6 is not a passing opportunity for HPD on HPD, yeah, it's not easy to pass here in the HPDs if the 2 cars are on equal pace. So the easiest thing is to try and force the other driver into a mistake, which is pretty easy to do here at Laguna Seca.
Now, that turn 6 is one of those places I've kind of got my eye on, Kevin, because with the multiple classes, one of the things I've learned over the years is you don't try and do something risky coming up to 6, because that's a bit of a short stretch, and it causes some compromising positions.
It does cause some compromising positions, and but on the flip side, it actually can be used as a passing zone. It's a little easy to pressure somebody into just giving it up right there. So if you feel like you've got the speed, sometimes it's worth just sticking your nose in there, and sometimes the other guy will just give it up nice and easy in there, just because it's such a difficult corner to run that nobody really wants to go too wide in there. So sometimes just being a little aggressive can actually be the easier way to get things done around here.
Absolutely. Let's hop back to C3 class, though, because I've got my eye on Patrick Pitchler and Tom Valentini. Dusty, we keep talking about these teammates, but it's different from what we've seen in the past 3 races as far as the 2nd and 3rd positions go.
Yeah, I think actually, excuse me, I think what happened, I saw there was a little bit of an incident earlier. One of these guys dropped back a little bit further. Valentini dropped back from the pack right off the beginning, from the pack of 3 of them, while João Cardozo managed to get a big run out the front. Though he hasn't quite managed to completely lose these guys, these other 2 guys, Patrick Pitchler and do I have the order wrong on these?
Pitchler's in 2nd, Valentini is in 3rd.
Okay, I am actually a little confused there. Yeah, okay. We had Valentini in 3rd. It looks like those things got mixed up kind of early on in the race. Yeah, Pitchler's definitely looking pretty good for 2nd, though. He's got Valentini right behind him here. These guys have shown in the past that they tend to not be super competitive within the team. If 2 of them are running, they tend to not battle a lot, and that's smart because that's generally going to slow you down. These guys, I think more than anything, they're shooting for João Cardozo. They want to keep that gap between them and João as small as possible, just in case maybe he does actually make a mistake for once and they can capitalize him.
And what sort of things does having a team give you an advantage on? Like, what ways can that help you that these guys would be incentivized to get together and work together like that?
Well, there's a couple ways. I mean, the first big obvious one is in a draft sort of condition. Races with really long straights, especially combined road and oval tracks where you've got a lot of high-speed stuff, get a big advantage there. Now, here at Laguna Seca, that's not really a big deal. There's no really long straights where drafting really comes into play. It can be helpful in traffic at times. We got 2 cars closer together. You're a little more significant force on the track. It's a little hard for other classes to bully you around. Things like that. Some of it can just be psychological. It's nice knowing that the person behind you isn't going to do something really aggressive and throw you off your line. So, you can just, as long as you see that friend behind you, you know that you can follow your normal line. You don't have to worry about anything crazy.
Well, let's jump to C1 because I'm looking at Lars Conrad and Anton Volodin right now, and Volodin is really hassling Conrad at the moment, Kevin.
Blood is indeed Hassan Conrad. They got hung up a little bit by the C2 of Sven Kresmer. No big deal. They got around him pretty easily. But yeah, this is a story we've seen in the last few rounds where Anton a little slow off the start, and then after 10, 15 minutes, he really starts to pick up the pace and move forwards. So I guess he doesn't like the HPD on a full tank of fuel because he definitely picks up the pace quite a bit right now. And Lars Conrad just doesn't know where to go to get around that McLaren of Mark Hewitt, and definitely has to check up left and right, and they almost go 3 wide for a moment there into turn 3, but fortunately they get it all figured out.
Yeah, and it's not just them. You can see in the picture Iker Estefania also trying to keep up in this. So despite only 4 cars in this HPD field in C1 class, we've got all 3 fighting for second place here as Anton continues to try and weasel his way up into that second spot. Nothing going right now. Let's see if we can get a run coming down the Rahal Straight.
Yeah, he had to lift a little bit there. You saw he completely botched turn 6, put his outside wheels off on the dirt on the exit, and had to get loose. And then Lars Conrad, he goes off in the corkscrew, back safely on the track though, but he loses both of those positions to Anton and Iker.
And he is definitely going to get a slowdown penalty for having cut the course there, so that's going to hurt him even more. So Anton moving his way up into second after qualifying in 5th in his class. So he's making good, like you said, on that lighter fuel as he starts to burn it off. We have an hour and 8 minutes left to go on the clock. So we are getting close to pit stops possibly happening here. And Daniel, it sounds like we've got about a 1 stop expected today.
Yeah, typically in a 90-minute race, it'll only be 1 stop for all these cars. Normally around an hour. The McLaren is fuel limited to, I believe it's 72%. So all the cars have similar fuel lengths. And we should see them in, the fuel window should open probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes.
So you have to keep us abreast if anybody starts to come in, especially the leaders. Meanwhile, it looks like Iker is really struggling in traffic here as he's trying to hold on to Anton coming up to the corkscrew. They've got these C3 cars really getting in their way. And in fact, that's allowed Lars Conrad to get right back up on these guys as they bottleneck into the corkscrew. So the fight is back on despite Conrad being slowed up by that cut course. Oh, and there's a car spinning, just narrowly avoided by both of them. I think he got tipped by Conrad.
I don't know if he was tipped. That's I'm trying to take a look right there. I think he wasn't. I think the McLaren just spun on. That was the McLaren of Mike Sargent. I think he just spun on his own. He had a shallow entry into Rainey and just wasn't able to keep it.
Yeah, we're on replay right now. Let's watch that as Iker just narrowly goes to the left and Conrad goes to the right. They split the car. Very tough to tell from that angle whether there was contact or not. I thought I saw it from my point of view earlier. But either way, Conrad is continuing on. So at least he's confident enough that it looks like he's not really losing anything. So maybe his aero wasn't damaged.
Yeah, I can't see any damage on any of the HPDs, and as I said, I think that was just the McLaren of spinning on his own. He took a shallow entry into Rainey, which is very, very difficult to make work, and I think he just spun on his own.
Now, about the aero of these cars, the bodywork and whatnot, obviously it's very important because we always talk about these being downforce-dependent cars. What does that mean with these very high curbs on the inside, the red sausages we mentioned?
Those red curves, those red sausages, you cannot touch those in an HPD. If you touch those, your car will probably go flying into the air, damage all over. You'll probably break your suspension, break your wings. It's pretty much a race ender. You cannot touch those in the HPD. You do not want to touch them under any circumstances.
Well, there was another attempt by Lars Conrad to try and get by Estefania coming into turn 10 there, or I'm sorry, turn 11. But nothing doing as they had another C3 car in their way, so he's got to wait a little bit longer. Now, with these cars being so aero heavy and whatnot, what are the passing zones around here for these HPDs, Kevin?
The passing zone is anywhere and everywhere that the other guy makes a mistake is pretty much what you have to deal with.
Short and sweet. I love it. Let's hop over to some of the other classes since it looks like Lars has just started losing. Oh, I'm sorry, and Lars Conrad has actually just spun coming out of 5, hits the wall. That's going to hurt his race significantly. We're going to go to replay here and see what exactly happened. I think we saw it live on air. Yeah, coming up into turn 5 here. Looks, yeah, he just gets his wheels off into the dirt. That was enough to send him around, and he was just a passenger off into those tires.
Yeah, he was. You know, he picked up a little bit of damage, I think, actually from that spinning McLaren earlier that I just hadn't noticed, and I think that may have been just enough to affect him a little bit there, and around he goes. He's going to definitely need to bring it into pit lane and get some repairs. I think that front end's looking a little wonky to me.
Sad to see after he was having such a good fight there. But right now, let's go to the battle between Tim Abbott and Manuel Sanchez, and that is for the 5th and 6th spot between these two guys in the C2 class, but they're very close at the moment here, Brian.
Yeah, you know, I've been watching these guys for the last couple of laps, and they've been dealing with everything between HBD traffic, passing some of the McLarens, and avoiding each other in some of these trickier parts of the tracks. I've noticed that Sanchez is not having the pace that he had in the last couple of races, but, you know, it's not to say that he's not even having an inconsistent race. It's just maybe he's not comfortable here at this track, as we see an HBD tucking on the inside there up onto the start-finish line. I'm really surprised that Sanchez is so far back, obviously, but not to say that it's not too late for a good finish. I noticed in the front of the track, Sven Kresmer is doing what Farouk Manzar did last week, and he is just taken off. He is so far in the lead, no one even knows where he is on the track. Braden Eves has also kind of spaced himself out from Stefan Overgaard, who's tried very hard to get his grips back on the second place position, but unfortunately with the way the traffic's been playing, it's been slowing him down. And then David Drost is kind of off in no man's land, as he has no one to draft with or fight with, and traffic's only slowing him down. So Joe, it seems like everyone's spread out for the most part, except for this battle here with Manuel and Tim Abbott, which has been very intense say for the last couple of laps here.
And it looks like we're getting word that one of the HPDs is already into the pits. Daniel, what can you see down there?
It's Lars Conrad. Joe, he's just rolling into his pit stall now. I'll get the timer on it. He's just stopped now. I'm assuming fuel and tires. I'm assuming they'll look at the damage on that car as well. Just got the time on. He's been stationary for 10 seconds already. Not sure if he'll actually drop back in overall position behind the Corvettes. Just looking at it now, I think they've dropped the car back down, so they've done tires. Just waiting on fuel now, and I'm not sure how much damage he has.
Yeah, it's looking like they're probably going to try and repair that damage, which I imagine is a smart thing, because he's definitely going to need it around here.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Kevin.
Sorry. Yeah, you're at Laguna Seca, especially in the HPD, you're going to want all the aero grip you can get. This track is just so difficult to deal with that any little bit of aero damage is enough to really put a damper on your day. Unfortunately, that's put Lars Conrad a lap down on the rest of the C1 field, but he's just going to have to deal with that, I think.
And a lot of endurance racing, especially in that C1 field, is always going to be just dealing with it, it seems like. Right now, we are looking at João Cardoso, the leader in C1, who's dealing with some traffic. It looks like, for some reason, he was passing by a C2 car. And we saw that in qualifying, though, Brian, that the pace of some of these Corvettes is a little bit off.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing to think about when you're thinking about the Corvette being just a powerhouse, ready-to-go race car. It doesn't really do as well in the corners as you'd hope it would, but where it makes up a lot of its time is climbing the hills and getting on the long start-finish line. That's where it is the fastest. But when you get into these more trickier corners here, like we're watching right now with Braden Eves, as he tries to catch up and pass these two McLarens, they corner roughly about the same speed. As a matter of fact, I think in some corners the Corvette might be even a little bit slower because of the way the weight's distributed and the way that the horsepower really spins those back tires around. So it's a kind of a weird balance. You need to find the sweet spot and then just be in total car control if you want to survive here. If not, you're going to be seeing yourself behind McLarens for a long, good chunk of this race.
Yeah, so things are going to just get a little
Oh,
bit
we have a
mixed
McLaren
up.
spin in the corkscrew. He got Braden Eves. I did not see what happened. It looks like Braden Eves larked it up, going into the corkscrew on the inside line, and he spun and taken a considerable amount of damage.
And it looks like that was with Mike Sargent. We're watching that replay now. Yeah, they've got 2 McLarens with him there. And it looks like Sargent, outbraked himself and just crossed into the dirt. It was a light tap, so those 2 should be able to keep going as they try to figure out who needs to go. And yeah, Mark Sargent, you can see continuing on, and then in the background there, Braden Eve gets his car back going. But he's exited out, interestingly. I wonder if his, he disconnected. So maybe his connection went out there. I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Coming out of, I believe it's Rainy Corner, where you're talking about that nasty incline where the sewage pipe is, or the drainage area is, he just went off into the gravel. So I'm thinking his toe was out or something with the suspension wasn't right, and he didn't see the point of repairing it. Looks like he just pulled out the side and disconnected, like we saw with Troy Schultz earlier. So unfortunately, as well as he was running today, that might be the end of his race.
An unfortunate thing to see, because he did so well at Mid-Ohio, and he was doing very well today, holding down that second position. So definitely decided to call it quits. This is going to make it even easier for Sven Kresmer. But David DeRoche, the Roach, is definitely in the house. He is always impossible to get rid of, it seems, ever since VIR. Holding down that second position, just really taking advantage of other people's misfortune, Brian.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. I wonder what kind of pit strategy he's looking at doing here, because we saw Stefan Overgaard. He's back a long considerable ways. It's showing him down 4 laps, so not sure what happened there, but Manuel Sanchez and David Drosch are moving up the ladder pretty quick, and it's obviously due to either their pit strategy or the attrition that's going on the track now.
And we have Anton Volodin just spun on the exit of turn 11. He's actually going backwards on the track as he's reversing, trying to get away from the wall, and gets it looped around again, and he's back going again. But just a little bit of a hiccup there. I think he just got on the power a little bit too quickly, trying to set up to go around that Corvette of Manuel Sanchez, and around he went.
Yeah, you can see the replay there. You're exactly right. Just on the power a little too early there, and has to do himself a little 3-point turn here to try and get turned around, it looks like. Loops it around. Very nicely done. And he was on his way. But Daniel, I also understand, speaking of cars having high attrition, Stefan Overgaard seems to be having a bad day.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he's come in and been in for so long, but I've got my timer on 3 minutes 30 that he has been stationary for now. So I'm not sure if he's hit the wall or something somewhere, but he's been stationary for a very long time.
So we have about 56 minutes left to go. We're on lap 26. We're about a third of the way through this race, and already a lot of guys are dropping out. Lenoir Philippe is out of this race. Troy Schultz in C1 as well is out of this race. Stefan Overgaard is in the pits. Francisco Esteve Albert is the last one on track at the moment, currently sitting 26 overall after he had some connection problems. And then Braden Eves is also out of this race. Otherwise, everyone still seems to be in this thing.
Well, not so much in the C1 field right now. The closest battle is now 17.5 seconds between Iker Estefania and Anton Volodin for second and third. But I'm just kind of hoping right now for a little bit of action to bring these guys kind of back together.
I was going to say, we might have to put you in a car and send you out there, Kevin, to get some action going on.
There would definitely be some action, as I'd probably bounce off just about every car in the field, so I don't think they want me out there right now.
Knowing my luck in the Corvettes, I'd make it down pit road, I think.
All right. Well, we are going to go to break as these pit stops start to play out. We're going to come back in a moment, but in the meantime, enjoy some music. Welcome back. As you saw while we were gone, Anton Volodin has had quite a bit of an experience, and he actually just got black flagged for making a dive bomb into Rainy Curve with 2 other C3 cars in front of him. So he's going to have to deal with damage and with that black flag. But we also had some other interesting stuff happening that we had missed. We mentioned that Stefan Overgaard was in the pits getting some repair done for something that we didn't know had happened, and that was actually in turn 6 some laps ago, and he made contact with the overall leader, João Vaz, Daniel.
Yes, that is what happened. As we went to break, he was in the pits and still stationary. He did leave the pits after we went to break. He was stationary for a massive 7 minutes 33 seconds. I also saw then 2 laps later he was in again, but that looks like more of a routine stop.
And actually, we're seeing that Overgaard has disconnected, so maybe he's had enough as well. Boy, attrition is starting to really play its part. We've still got half the race to go. In fact, we're just about to the halfway point. So more and more guys continuing to drop out. In fact, we only have 2 cars overall on the lead lap. That is João Vaz, our leader, obviously, and Iker Estefania, also in C1 class, and he is a whole 30 seconds back, but managing to stay out of trouble and keep himself up into this second position at this point. Let's go through the top 5 in each class, although we don't quite have 5 cars on track in our C1. Currently, João Vaz leading, like we said, with Iker Estefania in second. Anton Volodin is in third, and then Lars Conrad is in fourth. What does the top 5 look like in the C2 class?
Sven Krsmar is doing basically what Farouk Manzar did last week. It's almost like they're the same person. He's pulled off way ahead, so he's in the first. David Drosch has moved up due to the attrition and the pit strategies in play. He's in second. Manuel Sanchez, who is sitting way back on the pack, is in third. And Kevin O'Keefe has moved up to fourth place, followed by Tim Abbott, who was battling fiercely with Manuel Sanchez. He's going to round it off at 5.
Meanwhile, what's the top 5 in C3 look like?
Well, up front, as usual, we got Joao Cordojo, and behind him, second place has changed up. Patrick Pitchler dropped back at some point and wasn't able to hold on to second, so we have Tom Valentini in second. So that's definitely going to move him up a little bit in the points situation if Pitchler isn't able to catch him. Behind him, we still have Pitchler in third, then Andreas Allemansberger. Paulo Martins was giving him a pretty good chase earlier. Looks like he's still pretty hot on his tail, but there's a bit of a gap there. And then not too far behind them is Omar Zanchi.
And it looks like we've got another black flag for Anton Volodin, and we're going to check and see exactly what that one's about, if that's the same black flag or if this is another one. But another thing we should mention, Dusty, is also what happened earlier between Mike Sargent and Braden Eves. I know we touched on that a bit, but I know you went back and took a closer look and kind of saw what exactly went down there.
Yeah, I wanted to see what happened there because it looked initially like Mike Sargent broke a little late and got on the back of Braden, but I just wanted to sort of clear his name a little bit. I don't believe that was his fault. Braden Eves made a pass on his left going uphill toward the corkscrew, and the instant that he got past Mike Sargent, he cut immediately back to the right of the track, and that is the most difficult critical braking point on the track. You're slowing down a huge amount and you're going over a crest right into that corkscrew, and the MP4 probably has a shorter braking point anyway, so he pulled right in front of him, and Mike Sargent didn't have anywhere to go and tapped the back of Braden Eves, and that's what put them both out of the race.
Joe, I want to just jump in real quick. It looks like we got a couple of Corvettes coming down pit road, so Daniel, take some notes on there. And Joe, I noticed it seems like a lot of people in the Corvette field are having an issue on the corkscrew, or that little bit going up to the corkscrew. I wonder if it's just the setup that we're all using today. Maybe the springs are too soft there and it's hard to control the car. But I noticed that with all of the people, even including the leader, Sven, he's had even some issues at the corkscrew. So tell us a little bit about the corkscrew exit and why that's such a challenging entry point for these cars today.
Well, like you said, these Corvettes have a lot of power, so trying to come off the exit of the corkscrew, you got to be careful with the car dropping so many stories. You know, obviously gravity is not helping you at that point, keeping the tires onto the track. So they got to really be careful. As I saw an HPD spun around, no, that's a Corvette spun around at the exit of turn 11. That's Tim Abbott, got his car turned around. Now he's going to try and get it wheeled around as he just barely squeaks it in a U-turn and gets it going once again. But yeah, you know, between the difficult braking of the crest of that corkscrew and then dropping so much elevation on the exit, I have to imagine that these Corvettes are just having a rough time all around through there. So we're getting word, though, that it looks like in C2 we might have had a car get jumped in the pit stop between DeRoche and Sanchez, Daniel.
Yes, they came in together with DeRoche in front of Sanchez. I'm not sure if if DeRoche took tires and Sanchez didn't, or what it was, but Sanchez left quite early compared to DeRoche and jumped him easily.
It looks like we're getting information that it was a 5-second difference between them in the pit, so that obviously had a huge effect, which we saw. Also, we're getting word that Tim Abbott was too hot into the final corner and struggled to slow it down. That's probably why he managed to hit that inside wall. It looks like he's still going on, though. So, actually, he's going by another car off, and that is Diego Albuquerque, who has had a terrible race today between his early black flag and now trying to get his car going back on track. So, another number of guys really just struggling around this track today.
It looks like Tim Abbott actually just jumped into the pits here, so we'll see if it's a routine stop or if he's going to do a little bit more with the damage he might have picked up from that inside wall contact. Right as I say that, it looks like several of the McLarens that were on pit road are coming out now, so it looks like the pit stops are either starting up or ending, tidying up right now, Joe.
Well, I think the bar nearby the track is going to get a little bit filled up pretty quick because, Kevin, it looks like another HPD driver has retired.
Yeah, unfortunately, there just aren't any good bars close to Laguna Seca. You kind of have to go into Monterey itself before you get to the nice fine dining. But yes, Anton Volodin has retired. He got a black flag for that contact between, boy, it was so long ago, I don't even remember, Cedric Finsack and Mike Sargent, and I'm going to object to the dive bomb label that was put on that earlier. He kind of got himself into a bad situation. Finsack had gone off on the exit of the corkscrew, and all of a sudden Volodin found himself kind of in the middle of a 3-wide. He put himself in that spot, but that was, I don't think, a dive bomb.
So it is getting quite mixed up at the top here. We've got 3 HPDs up in the top 3, but then the 4th place car overall is our leader in the C2, Sven Kresmer, who's been kind of cruising on around, although he's had a few offs along the way. He's obviously had the least amount of problems so far. Kevin O'Keefe, who I don't think has pitted yet, has worked himself into 2nd, so he's still got to shuffle back down. We've got 39 minutes left on the clock, so he's still got a ways to go. We've got a ways to go too, so don't you go away. Kevin, you can't go away either, even though I know you've got not that many cars to talk about. And there's just a lot of cars that are just struggling and fighting around here. I think if these guys stay on track, Dusty, they're going to have a good chance of a good result today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're coming down to basically it's now an MP4 race. But it's turned out pretty good. We do have it looks like a pretty good battle going on right now between 5th and 6th in the class between Omar Zanchi and Paulo Martins. Bright yellow and bright green cars battling it out. It looks like after the pits all settled out, I believe Pitchler has regained his 2nd place, if I'm not mistaken. No, that is not. Oh, right, because Valentini and Andres Allmensberger got out of the pits first. So I've got to see how the positions settle out after they get around the start-finish line next time. But do believe that Cardozo, after pitting, was able to maintain the lead. So nothing has changed there quite yet.
Yeah, we saw Zanchi do very well in the qualifying race at at Suzuka. But right now, as you mentioned, he's currently fighting for the 5th position with 6th place car Paulo Martins, and he's doing fairly good. A top 5 is going to do him well in the points at least. And I think he was looking pretty good from what I recall at VIR for a while, and then possibly ran into some trouble. But right now, he's definitely got Martins all over the back of him. Martin seems to be relatively patient at the moment, kind of holding position, keeping about 3 or 4 car lengths behind as he just tries to watch. And Dusty, tell us a little bit about, why would a driver just wait there behind the other driver? Why wouldn't they go on the attack right away?
Well, patience. It's just a good strategic move. You don't, especially on a track like this, you don't want to really force the hand and get yourself into trouble. The other thing is, if you're trying to make progress up the track versus the cars ahead of you, like we were talking about before, just because somebody's not officially on your team doesn't mean that you can't cooperate for a certain amount of time. So just running single file for a line can be beneficial for both of you guys to help you get up off the track. And then, just wait until somebody makes a mistake and capitalize on that, play the safe play. Once you get later on into the race where you really got to make up some positions, you'll see riskier moves. But, at a time like this, unless you're really a lot faster than somebody and they're actually slowing you down significantly, it's usually not worthwhile to press the issue.
Well, meanwhile, our overall leader has employed his pit strategy. Daniel, what have you got for us?
Yes, Jalvaz, the overall leader and C1 leader, has made his pit stop. He was stationary for 33 seconds, fuel and tyres, very scheduled, very cool in a way, with such a big lead, just making sure that the car left the way it came in.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to see in just a bit how far ahead he is of Iker Estefania, since I believe Iker has done his stop as well. And it looks like...
Sorry, Joe, Iker has not stopped yet.
So Iker is going to be able to lead a lap. Well done to him, although obviously it's because of pit strategy at this point. Like you said, he's still got to come in. Meanwhile, a whole lap down already, Lars Conrad still circulating. I know he had some trouble in turn 5, which he's going through right now at the moment, and continuing to go on around, but should be able to pick up a podium spot. In fact, he will pick up a podium spot. He could just park the car at this point and still be on that top 3 when the end of the race comes, just to tell you how tough it's been on these HPD cars around Laguna Seca. So as things continue on, we've got 35 minutes left to go. Things are still a little bit mixed up as a few guys are still having to run through their pit strategy, but it's been an interesting one to say the least, guys.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by Sven Krismer today in the C2 class with the Corvettes. He has really come in and just shown us how good a driver can be out the gate when you're entering a highly prestigious or an aspiring series such as this. The talent level here is definitely not lacking. So the fact that he's coming in and putting on this much of a lead is really a testament to both his skill and the skill of the series overall. So it's very exciting to see. Manuel Sanchez, he's also having a good race. He was a little ways back to start it out, but due to the attrition and now that the traffic's thinning out a little bit, he has made up a ton of time, and with his good pit stop, hopefully he didn't short himself on fuel. Like I said, I think he's going to have a good finish today, Joe.
Yes, he's definitely going to have a good finish, even if he finishes in second, because he's quite a ways back from Krismer. I think it's worth mentioning that Sanchez is the points leader, like we said earlier, and pretty much all of his competitors, everybody close to him in points is either out of the race or very far down at this point. Because, DeRoche he's not even in the top 5, and he's behind Sanchez on track right now. Krismer, obviously, he's missed the first 3 races, so even if he gets into the series, he's not going to be competing because he's going to have both drop races and a 0 points race taken up in his points, so he's not going to be able to compete. So Sanchez effectively is going to extend his lead with this second place finish. You've also got word that Iker Estefania has come into the pits, and it looks like he's already back out, Daniel.
Yeah, Iker Estefania, has made his stop, 31-second stop, so it was 2 seconds quicker than Jalvaz's. Again, routine, tyres and fuel to get him through to the end of the race. Kevin? Joe? Sorry.
No, I think we should give Kevin a bit of time. With the way that this championship is coming out here with João Vaz doing so well, I mean, who do you think is going to be able to at least try and compete with him? Or is there anybody who's going to be able to try and run him down in the points?
Well, Joe, I'm not really sure that there is anybody now. Troy Schultz is the only one who's got the speed, I think, to compete with João Vaz on a consistent level. But now with Troy having 2 DNS and a did not start, Troy is pretty much out of the running for the championship. So João Vaz is sitting pretty well with a pretty significant lead over the rest of the C1 field.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that compared to Suzuka and Daytona being the first round, we were all expecting Troy Schultz to just absolutely destroy everybody because that's what he had shown previously and just seemed almost infallible. And João Vaz was in the reverse position of being the one struggling with mistakes, being a little bit slower on pace and just having a hard time. And it's completely reversed as this season has started to progress. João Vaz is just looking like we said earlier, like a seasoned veteran, and really just doing a commendable job around here. And like you said, I don't think he's going to have anybody to fight for the championship with. As long as he keeps it on the track for the rest of the season, he could have this thing all together. We always, he said it's too early to talk about the championship, but he is looking pretty handy at the moment. But it ain't over till it's over. We always say that about racing. It is always true. And João has got to do the job if he wants to make it happen. So he's got to get out and keep pounding these laps out if he wants to win this championship. Meanwhile, same deal with Manuel Sanchez. He's got to keep putting in these good performances that we've seen. And same thing with João Cardoso. He's looking pretty handy right now, Dusty, but he's got to keep it up for the rest of the season if he wants to keep rifling off these good finishes.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of doubt that he's capable of doing that. What I'm more interested in is what the pure racing guys are capable of doing. If you look, their situation is the same as it was at the beginning of the race. After the pits have settled out, Patrick Pitchler back in second with Tom Valentini right behind him. These guys are obviously a very close bunch. They are always like these 3 guys, Patrick Pitchler, Tom Valentini, Andreas Allemansberger, second, third, and fourth. Almost every race, second, third, and fourth. The blue of team racing is always right up there at the front. So they collaborate a lot, they work together a lot. What are they going to do to knock João Cardoso off the front? Obviously, he's a fantastic driver. Obviously, he's got some good with setups or has some good resources. So I want to see if they're going to rise to the challenge and really, try to push forward and up their game to see if they can make something work and actually knock him off.
Absolutely, and credit needs to go to Valentini, who we're watching him try to run down Patrick Pitchler at the moment. He hasn't been on the podium. In fact, like we said, it's been the same drivers on the podium all 3 races so far, and that's Cardoso, Pitchler, and Allemansberger. But today, it seems like Tom has the measure of Andreas.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of attrition on this one. It looks like maybe this isn't Andreas's track quite as much. He's not that far back, just a couple turns, but these guys have switched around a lot. This might just be Valentini's, his track. This is just his place to shine a little bit more. It's actually kind of interesting. Laguna Seca is not a new track. This is not a track that people aren't familiar with. I know that it's a technical track and it tends to cause people troubles, but I'm a bit surprised at how much trouble it still causes people despite how popular this track is and how much people run it. It's a busy race weekend. I wonder if these guys have been a little distracted also practicing for some other races and things like that too.
Yes, it's the weekend of the 120 minutes of Sebring for iRacing, the Road Warrior event, so some of these guys could have been distracted, like you said. And actually, I was about to go to break, but Tom Valentini is so much closer than Patrick Pitchler this time, coming down to the front to the Andretti hairpin. Let's see if he tries to make a move. No, in fact, Patrick actually goes defensive, so there might not be team orders here as he felt the need to cover him off. Although Valentini didn't try to make an attempt there, but he is much closer than we've seen him before.
Yeah, we definitely have a race here. Valentini, has been a little bit further behind. He would probably love to have that second place finish. And you also have to figure these guys probably don't figure they're going to catch Joao Cardozo at this point in the race, so they're going to make the most of it and put on a show.
Yeah, and with this being the final third of the race, we're less than 30 minutes to go. This is when you've got to make it happen. All the pit stops are gone. You've got to pass on track. And we've seen it before, especially in endurance racing like this, that you really have to capitalize on the mistakes of other drivers. And I think that was more Patrick's mistake than Valentini turning on the afterburners as they go through the corkscrew now. And he's done an excellent job keeping it all together. This could be his chance as he's closer to try and make something happen out of the draft that he's got, even though these aren't very long straights around here. Let's see if he closes up again as they come up to 11. It looks like he's much stronger up into that corner than Pitchler is, Dusty.
Yeah, I think he might just be a little stronger on this track in general. He definitely got past Pitchler earlier before the pit stops, and I think Pitchler just had a better pit stop that put him up. Oh, a huge slide by Pitchler. And that's going to put Valentini to second.
There he goes. Valentini is up another step on the podium. He's got a long ways to go if he wants to try and get up to first, but at this point he has moved himself very handily up into second place. Patrick Pitchler down into third. So Pitchler has some work to do. We're going to go to break here for a moment, and we're going to let you enjoy some music, but in the meantime, keep an eye on the screen. We'll be back in a second. Welcome back to Laguna Seca. We're watching the final moments, 22 minutes left here, and the 90 minutes of Laguna Seca and the EnduroPro series. Another quick mention, if you want to get a hold of us, you can tweet us at GSR Channel. Ask us any questions you want. We'll try to answer them on air in the final moments of this race. But you remember how I said it ain't over till it's over, guys? Well, Brian, Manuel Sanchez seems to have a little bit of a curveball thrown to him.
Yeah, what happened was in turn 6, he was coming. It's kind of a blank corner. If you're not familiar with Laguna Seca, you can't really see up the hill. Well, anyways, Diego Albuquerque spun his car. He's a McLaren driver. He spun his car, and then Manuel Sanchez had nowhere to go really on the track. He chose to go on the inside, which is very tough to do regardless in the Corvette with that what we call the sausage bump there at turn 6's apex. But he happened to turn to the left just as Albuquerque was trying to get going and clipped him full on. It was like a full T-bone, and that effectively ruined his race. And Diego, I think, is also going to have the end of his race. The interesting thing I saw about that, though, I watched it from the inside of the car. At first glance, it looked like he didn't really have anywhere to go, and he just made a really dumb choice to go inside there. But if you really watch it, it looked like he would have been going inside anyway. So I don't know if that was a driver's error, poor decision, or just bad luck, and the guy happened to be there. Needless to say, that's not going to look good for Manuel Sanchez in today's race.
Also, while we were gone, just after we left, Dusty, it looks like Valentini lost that second place position.
Yeah, Valentini had another big slide going through 6, which allowed Pitchler to get back up in second. And just before that happened, I was just about to say to the rest of the crew that I wouldn't be surprised if before the end of the race, Valentini voluntarily gives the spot back up to Pitchler anyway, even maybe on the last lap if they're fighting all the way there. At this point in the series, Pitchler is the only driver, I believe, that has any chance of knocking Cardozo off that first place in points. And if that's going to happen, he basically needs to have a flawless series and hope that Cardozo makes a mistake at some point. So for the sake of the team, I'm really curious if Valentini would let him have it.
Yeah, and we're watching those two blue Pure Racing cars very closely together right now. And in fact, it looks like Pitchler went defensive yet again. So I guess he doesn't feel completely safe with Valentini. So maybe, I don't know, it's hard to tell if they've got orders or not. But as you can see, they've got all kinds of inspirational phrases all over those cars. Keep hustling on the front, as they are going to have to do to keep up here. So we actually, I'm trying to check to see what information we've got in the chat here. And it looks like Sanchez is actually still trying to get his car repaired, even though he's been in there for quite a long time. But this is going to hurt him in the points just a bit. He's actually currently sitting 7th. He's 10 laps down. In fact, he's 2 laps behind Jiri Mojak. So even if he took off, the other 2 cars behind him are both out of this race. I'm not sure that there's much he can do. This will help David DeRoche, who has really come to the fore in this series after being slightly anonymous in the early couple races in the EnduroPro series, currently holding down 2nd. I know he's not in the top 5 in the points, but I think after this he's going to be slipping up into them.
Joe, I just wanted to point out that right now, as it stands in the C2 points chase, Manuel Sanchez has 71 points, and he's leading the whole song and dance as far as the season goes. Today, Stefan Overgaard is left due to attrition. João Oliveira and Fruit Manzar were no-shows, and Andre Martins, I believe, also was a no-show. So basically what that means is none of the top 5 race entries in the Corvette C2 field are in a position for a win here. Now, that might bump off Fruit Manzar, the rookie last race, who had a good, strong showing, and put one of these guys that have been running to the middle of the back of the pack up on the top 5 leaderboard. Now, they might not stay there very long, but it will definitely change the shape of how the standings look for at least one more race.
And we've got a pass almost happening there. Tom Valentini going around the outside of Patrick Pitchler, as they had the HPD of Iker Estefania coming through, but he wasn't quite able to make it happen. Now he's very close on the back of Pitchler. He takes a look to the left side. Pitchler goes defensive, coming up to the corkscrew. I don't see team orders necessarily happening here, but now he backs out of it. So Valentini decides the corkscrew is not the place to make it happen, possibly looking for a switchback as they come through Rainey. But no, he's holding station, so maybe they are. I don't know. It keeps going back and forth here, Dusty. I can't tell if they do or don't have these team orders.
Well, if there's team orders, they're not for right now. Right now, these guys are racing, absolutely. That move that Valentini pulled was, going around turn 5 there. It was a beautiful move. He tried to make a move going down to the straight beforehand. The traffic kind of got in the way, and Pitchler pulled a defensive line, but he went to the outside with the rest of the traffic, hoping that the fact that Pitchler had to stay on the inside due to traffic would allow him to move around. Didn't quite make a stick, but he's still pushing it through.
Yeah, he's still right on the back of that car as they get another lapped car moving out of the way, still pressuring Pitchler as they continue on with only 17 minutes left to go. Time winding down slowly but surely. And we've only got, let's see, I'm trying to see how many cars we still have out on the track here, because it looks like we have all of 20 cars of the 29 that started this race are continuing on. So it is really, really down to the last few stragglers here. As you know, and we're not unused to this. This is a track that really gobbles up drivers. You know, Dusty mentioned that it's technical and it's very difficult, and that's just a testament to how tough this sort of old school track is.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of it is just it's very different. A lot of the tracks that these guys might be used to driving on, a lot more flat with a lot more runoff, wider tracks and things like that. Laguna Seca is it definitely, as you were saying earlier, Joe, it has a groove. Most of the corners on the track have a lot of camber, a lot of banking to them, and if you're not in the right place at the right time, letting the track do the work for you. If you're trying to force the issue, putting in a lot of steering input and everything like that, it's very easy to get loose, spun out, elevation changes, chucking your car around, touching the sausage, as it were. A lot of things that will ruin your day. But if you get along with it, if you dance with it, it can be such a fun and fast course to drive.
And we're watching from the back of Pitchler as he looks at his teammate Valentini going around the course here. Very close. Just look at that, right up on the back of that car. Once again, taking a look around the side, coming up to the corkscrew, but then backs out of it once again. These pure racing cars have been very close the entire race, and it looks like they are going to continue to be close, barring a mistake, as Valentini continues to try to pressure him. Now we're watching from the television cameras as they head towards that final corner, one of the few passing zones that you can get around here.
Nice entry, I think, there by Valentini. Got it looked like he got a little loose, but he got a good rotation, was able to get on the power early. He's minimizing the gap that's opening up here on the speed, so he's able to get a little draft in. He's really good on the braking, on this course in general. For Valentini, this is obviously one of those tracks that, like I was saying, he definitely gets the flow here at Laguna, and he's making that show. He's been pushing on Pitchler this entire race. I really want to see him make this stick and push through.
Yeah, we want to see some racing happen here between these two guys. They've certainly been putting on, and I have to give Valentini credit. He's been very smart about trying to make his moves. He's been throwing it in there, but he hasn't really been reckless with his attempts. He's been very opportunistic. So as we continue to watch them cycle around, just slowly hunting down his teammate, really showing himself that he is a force to be reckoned with on this team. So maybe if someday they do have team orders, this could be something that he can toss in there to say, hey, I've shown that I am one of those good drivers that can really pressure, really have the good pace, and especially at the end of the race, prove to be very formidable.
Yeah, I don't know that it would probably be quite so official as team orders. If there's anything going on, it's probably a friendly agreement between them. They would rather see somebody on their team win the championship if possible. That said, I think these guys are still definitely individuals running their own races. And when you get into a situation like this where you're driving that close to somebody, it's almost impossible to fight the urge to compete. So if anything's going to happen where a position is given up for the sake of the championship, I think it's probably going to be very late, and these guys are going to make the most out of this great race every minute that they can.
I'm not sure if this is pressing the wrong button from Zhao Vaz, but I just saw him mention in the chat that he said pitting in. Daniel, did he actually come into the pits, or was that him hitting the wrong button?
No, you had the same response I did, Joe. The first thing I did when I saw that, I went straight to Drow and waited for him to come round. He did not pit, so I think it might have been a wrong button press on that one.
All right.
Contact. We have some contact between Pitchler and Valentini. Valentini tried to make a little move going into the corkscrew, tried to get on the inside to make a pass, got really tight on the braking, and they just had a tiniest little bit of fender bender. I'm really impressed that they both managed to keep that in line. They got a little bit loose, but managed to make it work. That's tough, especially with everything being really unloaded over that crest before the corkscrew.
Let's see if we can get a replay of that, because that did look incredibly close between those guys. Here we go, off to the replay. Let's see what happened here as they come up through turn 6. Like you said, just got a really good run as Valentini looks to the inside there. And then, ooh, it's very hard to tell if they touched. It's very close and it's very slight. But yeah, very good racing from both those guys. Let's go back to live now because they're still fairly close together, although Valentini has lost a little bit of time. So what does that do to you, though, Dusty, when you have that sort of light contact, that hairy moment that can maybe raise your heart rate a bit?
Oh, man. How much does your body like adrenaline? Personally, for me, it's really hard for me to stay on pace after a move like that, especially if I know it was my fault. I feel terrible. I start focusing on the incident, and that's the worst thing you do. When you're going triple-digit speeds, you want to be focused ahead of you, not 3 corners back, and it's really tough to be able to just put that aside and put your focus back on the track ahead of you. So I wouldn't be surprised seeing him falling back a little bit, if not for compassion for making a too bold of a move, or just because it's caused him to lose focus a little bit. But doesn't look like he's giving him too much room.
Yeah, I was going to say, that turn 11 is very good for Valentini as he keeps closing up every time they go into braking for there. He's doing a really good job into that as he starts to put the pressure back on. We're getting word that Manuel Sanchez is finally leaving the pits. And then we've also got a spin somewhere on the track. Brian, what do you see for that?
I didn't see who the driver was or what caused it. I was watching Sven Kresmer as he was coming to the last corner, and I just noticed there was a smoking tires McLaren just sitting off to the side. So maybe Dusty or Daniel, the pit reporter, can go back and look at that. Back to you, Joe.
Yeah, so Kresmer actually hasn't had it all his own way, even though he's been doing a good job of gapping DeRoche, who's fairly far back. But we've seen off screen a little bit. Sven has had a few off tracks here and there. He's had to deal with a few hairy moments with traffic and whatnot, so he's not completely impervious. And I have to wonder if the situation is a little bit different another race down the line where there's fewer cars running into problems. Is he going to have trouble with some of these faster drivers?
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing to think about, and before I go into that point, I just want to point out that Manuel Sanchez has manually disconnected, so his day looks like it's over, unfortunately, to the points leader here in the C2 class. But back to the other story, Sven has thrown down a very good race today. However, like you said, he had a few off tracks, one particularly during the break in the corkscrew. He almost hit the wall on the offshoot of the top side of the corkscrew. Was able to save the car, but like you said, he's not impervious. He makes mistakes, and when you get guys like João Oliveira and Andre Martins back in the mix in the coming weeks, I think he might actually struggle a little bit because he has a little bit of an inconsistency going. Hopefully, I'm not speaking in vain on him. He seems to be a very good high-paced driver, but some of the little mistakes he made here, they become a trend, might hurt him in the long run. And like I said, when you're racing guys like João Oliveira and Andre Martins, you can't afford to make those kind of mistakes, and that's where you really start to lose points in the championship.
And it sounds like Daniel has a bit of info on that spin, which was Zanchi, from what I understand.
Yes, it was Omar Sanchi coming through Rainy. He got a little close to the inside apex curb and then unsettled the car slightly, which triggered off a sideways slide. He then overcorrected and then spun going into turn 10. Joe?
We are down to 8 minutes to go. We are on board with Sven Kremer right now, and he is heading through turn 10, that heavily banked right-hander, as we watch him work his way through traffic. In fact, it always impresses me, Brian, for when you watch the onboard. I mean, you and I have both raced and done multi-class, so we have experience, but whenever you're not the one in control, it looks like every moment with these cars is a hairy moment trying to get by like he's doing right now.
One of the things I had to do when I was doing my my proto GT style racing like we were watching today was turn off the virtual mirror, because it really plays tricks on your depth perception. And there's nothing worse than the feeling you get when you're in a lower class car such as a Ford GT or McLaren and having an HBD all of a sudden look like the size of the Empire State Building all over the back of your bumper. It definitely does play mind games, so you got to really control your emotions and especially in the later parts of the race when you're getting a little more fatigued, start to focus more on what you're doing and how you can make yourself more predictable so the cars trying to overtake you don't take you out, and at the same time you don't turn into them or make a stupid movement that will end up costing you guys both the race. Right now I'm on board with Sven Krismer, and he's trying to get around a green McLaren here in the corkscrew, and you can kind of just see what it's kind of like if you go on board, Giancarlo, just trying to keep your car off the back of the slower car and still keep up your pace. It's very tricky to do, and it's a skill that multi-class drivers almost have exclusively to this style of racing, because in other kinds of sports you get the kind of on the back of someone's bumper feeling, but they're generally going the same speed as you. Here you got to keep in account the braking zones of the lower class car, while at the same time keeping yourself in check with the boundaries of what your car can perform at.
Yes, and he's getting by that. Well, I thought he was going to get by that McLaren, as now he finally clears him and gets on the inside. He was being held up for a while, but I guess Sven can kind of take his time. And that's the advantage of having that huge gap back to second place if you're in the lead, to just be patient, let the opportunity come, and not try to force the issue. And you can see Iker Estefania in the other position, being in second place in C1, trying to get by now, although he's also being quite patient now. Whoa! A bit of a moment there as he has to weave to try and get on by. So now he finally does it. But let's hop back to Patrick Pitchler and Tom Valentini in C3, because they are still back together. We've got 5 minutes left to go. See them heading through the corkscrew right now. And once again, Valentini all over the back of his teammate.
Yeah, he is so good under braking everywhere on this track. It's fantastic to watch. They've had to go through some traffic, which puts him back a little bit. For whatever reason, this track is so variable. It's so hard to pass, so he tries to make a pass that puts him back a little bit, but almost every corner he manages to just come right back up on him. I don't know if he's running a different setup or just more the style of car, but if you watch him every time, comes in under braking, he gets such great rotation on corner entry, which really allows him to make up the time on exit too.
Well, we saw on the screen that Lars Conrad actually headed into the pits as our two second and third place C3 cars went on by. We heard word that he had a spin as well. Daniel, what's going on down in the pits there?
Lars Conrad has made 2 stops in 2 laps. He spun out the corkscrew a couple of laps ago. It looks like he just got on the power too early. Came in at the end of that lap, which looked like a scheduled stop. I'm not sure why he's back in though.
All right,
and
well...
actually he just left again, so I'm not sure if that was a scheduled stop as well, or...
We'll have to maybe get a word with him after and see what exactly the problems are. Oh, and there was a problem with Patrick Pitchler, which we just saw. He cut the course as he missed the corkscrew, and now the spot has gone to Tom Valentini, who has switched on by. Can Pitchler come back at him?
I think he cut the course a little bit too much. Probably got like a 2-second penalty about, which is what you get there. It's going to be really tough for Pitchler to get past him, I think. Valentini's been pushing on him so much. I think he's just playing faster on this course. Unless Valentini makes another mistake or lets him by for the sake of the championship, we might have Valentini in second place here.
That was an excellent move for him to keep an eye out, because sometimes when a driver misses the corkscrew like that, it can throw you off as well, and you slow down so that they don't hit you, or that you can figure out where in the world they're going to go. So great job on Valentini to try and make that happen. We only have 3 minutes left in this race, so he is definitely going to be taking advantage of this little gap that he's got himself right here. As long as he doesn't make any major mistakes, I don't think he's going to be under threat.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of traffic come through to help wedge the gap open a little a little wider. Back there on the corkscrew, like you were saying, he did actually have to check up to make sure that he didn't come into the back of Pitchler. But Pitchler, I believe, had a momentary penalty for cutting the course, and he had to let him by anyway.
Well, Kevin, I don't know if you had hopped off to the bar for a bit, but how you doing over there in C1 class?
Well, I think Joao Vaz and I are pretty much doing the same thing and just taking it easy and playing a little bit of Candy Crush. Vaz is just crushing the competition right now. 21-second lead over Iker Estefania, and just I've been watching. He's just been smooth, consistent, not forcing the issue with any lap cars, just running out the time.
Yeah, and it looks like he's got about a 20-second gap back to Iker at the moment, which is a little bit smaller than I would have expected. But like you said, probably just taking it easy, knowing that he's got so much in hand right now with 2 minutes less than 2 minutes left to go here on lap 68 overall. And green flag racing the whole way, obviously, as there's no cautions in this series. But just an awesome job from Vaz, just going to rack up his 3rd win of the series so far and going to solidify his points lead. And I think he should be getting the white flag very soon here. I'm not exactly sure how long the laps are in these cars. It looks like about 1 minute 11, so maybe 2 laps to go here this time by. It's going to be very close, actually, as it's about, a minute 15. So, roughly 2 laps left to go here although he could probably slow down and just let the clock run out if he wanted to. It all depends on how he wants to take this. So, things continuing there. Let's check back to see what other battles are going on around the track. Valentini still has Pitchler behind him, but he's not terribly close. I did get word that Sanchez with him, or I'm sorry, it was that there was another car that was back on the track. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Francisco Esteve Albert who was back on the track, and that is your realm, Brian.
Yeah, well, if you remember earlier on the race today, he lost internet connection, and he came back as soon as he could, but because of the delay that he was not connected, he lost 2 laps. Well, with all the attrition and all of the way the traffic's thinned out, he has made up a lot of time, and he's actually caught up to Tim Abbott, who had a contact to the wall earlier in the race. And now it looks like Esteve was trying to get around him, and every time he made a move on the inside or outside, an HBD or McLaren was in the way. So he got held up, and now it looks like he's getting a little frustrated because it seems like now he's lost a little bit of time, and he's just cutting the corners and going off into the gravel in some weird spots, and it makes you wonder if he's just frustrated with how his day's gone. And it makes you also wonder, what would he be doing if his car was in pristine condition and on the lead lap up with Sven Kresmer and David DeRoche? I think he could have had a competitive race today, and it's just unfortunate that his internet let him down so early in the race, because what I'm seeing right now is he is, fast, consistent, and very well off at his pace. And it's just an unfortunate thing that his internet took a dump on him early on the race.
Yeah, it just goes to show that, to get the wins in this series, you have to have everything go your way. But in the meantime, as you can see, the white flag is out, so let's hop up to the leader. Joao Vaz still got about an 18-second lead overall as he comes up to lap Lars Conrad, the 3rd place car. In fact, Lars is 4 laps down. That's probably because of all the stops that he was taking earlier. Now heading through the corkscrew for the final time, slipping on by that C3 car as Joao Vaz has 2 more corners left to go to take the win. Through the banked turn 10, then going to cross back over for the final corner. That last hairpin, heavy braking, and then accelerating away. No reason to get on the grass too early. Weaves the car in celebration as Joao Vaz takes the win in the C1 class. Meanwhile, let's see where our other classes are. It looks like João Cardoso is going to be the next class leader to take his win. He has led the whole way yet again, and it's going to be 4 wins in a row for this guy. Absolutely unstoppable through the final corner. João Cardoso now taking the win in the C3 class as he comes across the line at Laguna Seca. Where is Sven Kresmer?
He's now coming rainy.
Yes, exactly, and into 10. So he has got 1 more corner to go himself. Not exactly a perfect race, but his first race, a 900 driver, proven himself to be pretty clean for the most part. and definitely fast as Sven takes the win in the C2 class, and that would be our 3 class winners in this race.
Yeah, you know, Sven had a good race today, and despite the fact that he had a few offs and a few weird positioned movements on the track, I think he had a good enough race that Mario will consider letting him on a full-time ride for the rest of the season. So congratulations to Sven, you had a great race, and being a rookie here, we know how hard multi-class racing is, so good work there, buddy.
Well, we are going to hop to break, and we'll bring the unofficial results. And as we leave, we do want to show you a video of the celebrating the winner of the All-Star Invitational that we had a month and a half ago, basically. And we are going to celebrate that while you wait, and we are going to come back in a moment. Welcome back to Laguna Seca, where we just witnessed the finish in the EnduroPro Series Round 4. And after 90 minutes, as you can see, João Vaz came out the overall winner and the C1 class winner. Iker Estefania was second, and then Lars Conrad completed the podium. Then in C2, and the Corvettes, Sven Kresmer, newcomer, won overall in C2. David DeRoche came in second, very good result for him, and Kevin O'Keefe, who we didn't talk a lot about, managed to complete the podium. João Cardoso, once again, fourth time in a row, taking first in the C3 class. Tom Valentini taking his first podium, and then Patrick Pitchler finishing third in the C3 class. So, as it was an incredible race, a very interesting race. But let's go through the results. As we said, first off, we have João Vaz finishing first, Iker Estefania in second, and Lars Conrad in third. Then we get into the C2 class with Sven Kresmer in fourth overall, David DeRoche in fifth, Kevin O'Keefe in sixth. Then we've got João Cardoso in seventh. Starting off the C3 cars, Tom Valentini in eighth, Patrick Pitchler in ninth, then Andreas Almensberger in 10th, his first time off the podium. Paulo Martins in 11th, Omar Zanchi in 12th, Riley Wyans takes 13th, Derek Waller is 14th. Then we get back into the C2 cars with Tim Abbott finishing 15th, Simon Carr was 16th, Jarrett Lawson in 17th, Francisco Esteve Albert trying to make up for that problem with his connection in 18th, Mark Hewitt was 19th, Jiri Mojak, our first of the non-finishers, in 20th. From then on down, it's cars that I believe were out of the race. Manuel Sanchez, Diego Albuquerque, Anton Volodin, Cedric Finzak, Mike Sargent, Stefan Oergaard, Braden Eves, Troy Schultz, Lenoir Philippe, Mario Baudry, and Lenoir Philippe is our final driver. And as I can't remember if I mentioned that or not, but our podium was brought to you by SimSeats Racing. So we've got a few interviews to do as we've got guys waiting. First up, we have João Vaz waiting to talk to Kevin Brown.
João, that was not exactly what I'd call a nail-biter, although the action for the first 10 laps or so was pretty good.
Yeah, the action was okay. I had Troy on my rear view mirror. Troy's very strong. I didn't feel like he was on his best shape today. In qualifying, he missed a lot of laps, but I was expecting a tough race. But then something happened, I lost him, and from there on out was just a walk in the park.
Yeah, it seemed like there was one moment with Stefan Overgaard caused you a little damage, but you didn't get that repaired, so it must not have hurt you too badly.
Actually, it did hurt me, and I did get it repaired. I lost a couple of seconds extra on my pit stop, but I had a good lead to Iker Stefania, and I decided to repair the damage because the car was like 0.6 of a second slower, and I didn't know if I was going to need that, so I just took the chance and repaired it.
Okay, well done. Next round is Watkins Glen. How do you feel about that one?
Watkins Glen is by far my favorite track. I really love it, so I have good hopes for that race.
All right, a fellow Watkins Glen lover here myself, so looking forward to the next round, so I hope you are too, and we'll see you then.
All right, thanks a lot.
Next up, we have the winner in the C3 class, and that is João Cardoso. I believe Dusty is going to talk to him.
João, congratulations once again, 4 in a row. That's got to feel pretty good.
Thanks, guys. It does.
So this race for you ended much like the last 3. Again, not a real nail biter. So I'm kind of curious, more as the season as a whole, and you as a driver. Can you tell us a little bit about your practice regimen? How much time do you spend, preparing for these tracks? Because you are so solid and reliable going through these races.
It varies wildly depending on my motivation. From Mid-Ohio, where I pretty much only practiced on the day, to this race where I was extremely well prepared. I guess my motivation basically fluctuates depending on how long I do at a certain track. This track, for example, is one of my worst, so I had to be well prepared.
It seems like there was a lot of that going on today. The order of the drivers was mixing up a lot. Tom Valentini, who never had a podium, was pushing really hard and ended up second. I think he actually had a faster lap than you today. Maybe if he wasn't battling with Pitchler, he could have put on a battle with you. How do you feel confidence-wise about, do you feel like you've had 4 kind of lucky races with traffic and everything like that? Or, do you think that you've pretty much got this series locked down unless somebody can really step it up?
Neither. I knew Tom was fast. He just hasn't had things his way. I do feel he could have been closer if it wasn't for being caught behind Pichler. But at the same time, I was sort of managing the gap most of the race. This track is just so hard. The attrition is so high that I pushed a bit the first few laps to establish a gap. Then I pretty much only pushed on my in and out laps. It's just you have to know at this track when you shouldn't step over your limit. So I guess I'm rambling here a little bit. I'm sorry, but yeah, I expected Tom to be good.
Okay, well, thanks much. It's been a pleasure watching you drive. You seem to have all the angles covered. Not that I'm not rooting for the other guys to put on a challenge for you, but regardless, it's wonderful watching you drive. I definitely learn a lot from you every time. Good luck in the rest of the series, and congratulations again.
Thanks, guys. See you at Watkins. Should be a good race.
We certainly hope so. And we have Kevin O'Keefe up next. And Kevin was the 3rd place finisher in the C2 class. I believe Brian's going to talk to him.
Well, for those who don't know Kevin O'Keefe, he's Rutgers Kev. He has a oval background, and he's a pretty big contributor to the community. So welcome on board, Kevin. How are you feeling today?
Thanks, I'm doing good. I'm already on the track at Sebring, ready for the 120 minutes at 4 o'clock.
All right, well, we'll keep this short then. We don't want to hold you up from your practice. How did you feel today in the Corvette over at Laguna?
Terrible. I really am terrible at Laguna. I got 3rd just based off attrition alone. I had fun though. That's why I'm here, to have fun, and I have to thank my viewers for encouraging me, especially Bill, who's here for every race.
Well, that's good to hear that you're still having fun, and with the way it went today, I think it's just kind of proving that in order to get the points in the standings here in this series, you got to at least survive. So congratulations on coming in 3rd and surviving on. Next week, I believe we're going to Watkins Glen Boot. How do you feel about Watkins Glen?
Much better. I'm actually a race winner in the Proto GT there, so really looking forward to that track.
All right, well, we'll let you get back to practice over at the Sebring. Good luck over there, and to your viewers, thanks for giving us more views here as well, and have a good afternoon. We'll talk to you later, Kevin.
Thanks. YouTube.com, RutgersCav, to see the 120 of Sebring. Thanks.
Well, I'm glad that he's not doing 120 hours because, man, that'd be a hell of a race. We've got one more to talk to. That is Braden Eves, who unfortunately did not finish today and was all the way down in 9th in his class. Braden, you were looking very good early on. You were up in 2nd, and then you had a bit of contact and you left the race. Was it damage that caused you to exit out?
Yeah. After that incident, I had the meatball. I already had 16X. I just could not get in a rhythm. I was going off track like every 2 laps. I had almost lost it at one point. I saved it, but yeah, if I got one more X, I would have been DQ'd, and I knew I was gonna get one at one point, so I just quit.
This is a track that definitely causes a lot of drivers grief. Would you say it's one of your trouble tracks?
Yeah, I haven't raced here very much. I actually didn't prepare that much for this race. I probably should have more, but I was up late last night doing the 120 minutes of Sebring.
I think a lot of guys were.
Yeah, I was gonna prepare after that, but it was just too late.
We've got 2 weeks time until Watkins Glen. Are you going to be able to be there for that one?
Yeah, I'll hopefully be there, but you never know.
All right. Well, we look forward to more racing from you in this series, and hopefully we'll see you in two weeks' time.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for interviewing me.
One more thing before we go, we did forget the driver of the race, and that is the Daco Designs driver of the race. This week, it goes to Tom Valentini for an incredible drive to get himself into second place in the C3 class. We were all very impressed in the booth with the way he was fighting for most of the last half of that race, and just very well done from him. But we want to thank a few people before we go as we wrap up today. Obviously, thank you to Daco Designs and SimSeats, two of the sponsors of the EnduroPro series. Also, thank you to the organizer, Mario Beaudry, and his cohort, Marc-Andre Povin. Thank you to the various software and hardware that we use, iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio-Technica, and AverMedia. Also, thank you to the team today, Giancarlo, Dusty, Brian, Kevin, and Daniel. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, you can find it at www.globalsimracingchannel.com, along with archived races and race highlights. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at /GlobalSimRacingChannel. Special thank you goes to Eric Ekholm, who provides us with much of our music. You can find it not only here on GSRC, but in TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like our music, tell Eric where you heard it at ericekholm.com. Additional thanks go out to Casey Lalonde, who provides us with music for the broadcast as well. You can find more of his music at caseylalonde.bandcamp.com. Our next race is Watkins Glen. That is going to be at 3:45 p.m. UTC on March 29th. The EnduroPro Series will be back in 2 weeks' time. Our next broadcast, next up right away, GVL, the Green Valley Lake MX5 World Tour, is going to be racing at Silverstone. That's at 7 p.m. UTC today. Also tomorrow, we've got the Roof European Trophy, and that is at Silverstone as well. That's 7:15 p.m. UTC, Sunday, March 16th. Also, we've got Northwest Majors coming up tomorrow. That'll be at Sebring, and that is at 1:30 a.m. UTC, Monday, March 17th. Also, we've got the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series coming up next week. That is at 10:30 p.m. UTC, and that'll be Saturday, March 22nd. That'll be round 2 for that series. The Piston Cup is also coming up in a week's time. That is at Watkins Glen. That is at 6:45 p.m. UTC on Sunday, March 23rd. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.